Welcome back. We're here with the all-wheel drive CRX, and this time we're going to be working on the cable to hydro conversion. But first, doing an automatic conversion in EF is relatively easy. It's basically only replacing the pedal assembly. There's a couple of wires you got to loop together, and we're in business. So there's going to be a couple of options for our conversion. So right here, the OEM firewall has a hole, which is a provision for the OEM clutch cable. You can simply pop that off. Once your pedal replacements are in there, put the OEM cable in there, and then you would run it out to your cable transmission, except, this is a hydraulic transmission. Most people know that you'll have to come up with some kind of conversion to actuate this type of clutch with the cable car. So if you're just hearing about us, then that's exactly what we do. That is our flagship part. We build cable to hydraulic conversions for these cars. So we're going to be installing our type, but there is another version out there which we'll also show you. Here is the pedal assembly you're going to source. I got this one from, looks like an 89 to 90. You can source one from 88 to 91, and I would probably try to get one from a Civic or a CRX, maybe not so much a wagon. The wagons are set up a little bit different, but that might only concern you if you're worried about what type of cable to hydro conversion you were going to use. So if you were just putting a D series or something in here that was cable actuated, it really wouldn't matter what pedal you use. Just make sure to grab the cable, which we have here also. But if you're doing a cable to hydro conversion, at least using ours, you want to stick to a Civic or CRX. This right here are two options that you could use. This is one that is a brand new version out from us, and this one right here is from Hasport, which is another great option if you don't want a master cylinder directly on your pedal assembly, and we'll go over the reasons why that after we get these pedals in. Now that the pedals are in, now we're moving forward to the cable to hydro conversions, and the first one that we're going to try is this one from Hasport. This is pretty much how you'll get it, and there are some other pieces that you're going to need, but essentially what happens here is there's a master cylinder that's going to bolt onto this side. It's going to attach to this this lever here, and then your cable is going to go through, and as you push on the pedal, the cable is going to depress the master cylinder, and then the master cylinder is going to push out fluid right into the slave cylinder. So being that you'd have to add that stuff yourself, well, we're a Hasport dealer, and we actually made a complete kit that could be available also. We'll have that linked down in the description if this works for you. Let's go ahead and set that up now. This is what it's going to look like pretty much when you get it. There's not going to be any assembly necessary for you, but I was just showing you the pieces that are involved. Now this is made to use like a stock Civic style master cylinder, but then most of the stock styles will have a remote reservoir, and all of this is integrated. It's going to come with our billet clevis here, which complements the bracket that's already here. And one thing that we do offer is custom clutch lines. So depending on where you want to mount this will determine how long your clutch line will be and the type of fittings you're going to use. With the cable installed, now you want to be able to mount that wherever this will reach. You know, so if it was a B series car, you could set it over here and the cable would stretch really nicely. A lot of guys end up using places like this in here. Now you'll have to install it in the direction that the cable is going to go. So if the cable is coming around, it'll come into here just like that and pull. Now there's holes on the bottom here. You can bolt it through the body however you'd want. You might have to disassemble this to get bolts down through there. Just depends on how you want to mount it. I think on this particular chassis we're going to mount it over here. We had some customers with K-swaps that have used this device, and it seems like they liked it in this area here, and I think that's where we're going to put it for educational purposes. We're going to set it right here. That does make our clutch cable pretty long, right? So it's going to attach to it something like that, and you can see what's going on here. So we'll see what we can do to make that look a little bit more pretty. Oops, it looks like this clip was missing some audio. I'm just explaining that I decided to mount the CMA right there instead of on the frame rail. There's going to be a lot of extra work involved in doing that, and we didn't actually plan to keep this in the vehicle. I'm just showing how this works for those that may want to use this in a setup that maybe we don't have a conversion for. Remember, this is universal. I'm also showing that we can make clutch lines in any length within reason using different types of fittings at the slave and at the master. In the next clip, we'll go ahead and install it and show you how it works. The yarding has really taken a toll on my camera gear here. I'm showing you how we're bleeding this system. I've had great success using pneumatic bleeders. Here I'm just showing you how to set it up onto the slave, and pulling the trigger, it draws fluid pretty quickly. This was probably the fastest bleed I've had on one of these devices. Here soon you'll see it draw fluid pretty fast. Keep an eye on it and add fluid as needed. It would probably be a good idea to put the cable on before you bleed it. That will help compressing the master a little easier when you go to put the cable on. If you put these cables on your factory cable transmission like a B or a D, you'll notice that it's pretty difficult to get on. You have to sometimes jack up the clutch arm to be able to get the cable on. Anyways, I'm also showing you here how to adjust the cable, and then you could also adjust that by the clevis. Every vehicle is going to be a little bit different. So the Hasport CMA, that is one option that you could use, and remember that can be used with essentially any vehicle in terms of its versatility and stuff that we don't already have parts for, like what I'm going to show you now. Now here is another option. We have been in the business of producing something like this since 2009. It looks actually a little bit more simplified than our previous versions. However, there is a lot more going on here than meets the eye. That was a Transformers plug. Well, what you see here is a bolt-on cable to hydro conversion. It bolts directly to your pedal assembly, mounting a master cylinder directly on your pedals, and the hydraulic line is going to come right out of the back of the master cylinder. Boom. There's no cable involved in this whatsoever. This is pedal specific and chassis specific, so this isn't universal. This is made purpose for whatever vehicle you're putting this in, and right now we currently have them for the EF. Depending on the type of clutch you'll be using will determine how well your cable will last. That is something that we discovered early on when we were putting performance clutches in this thing. The cable just couldn't stand the extra load. Then there were some guys that were actually having cables made that were stronger, except then your pedal assembly is breaking. So you have to reinforce your pedal. You got to take the pedals back out anyways. You're going to have to add some steel in there to use that cable. Now, if you still want to retain the cable and you have a transmission that can actuate a cable like YS1s or S1s, J1, B series style stuff, or even D series, a stronger cable would be just fine. If you were using a vehicle that you wanted to convert to hydraulics, then you could use the CMA with that type of cable, sure. But if you just want to eliminate all that stuff and go straight to a hydraulic system, this is the kit you want. As mentioned before, our conversion will bolt directly to your OEM style pedal assembly. There you saw me remove the nuts off of the clutch and brake pivots. Go ahead and reuse the hardware and then bolt our pedal assembly directly to it. Our conversion bracket will work with an OEM style 1992 to 1995 Honda Civic or Wilwood clutch master cylinder, as you see here on our complete kit. The master cylinders attach to the clutch pedal by a Heim joint. To attach it, we're going to have to drill through the clutch pedal. The instructions will show you in more detail how to do that. Once you get the Heim joint attached to the clutch pedal, This is where you're going to make some adjustments to make sure that the push rod goes back into the master cylinder straight. Our instructions go into that in further detail. This is also a really good time to set up your pedal stops. It's pretty important to have the pedal stops set up correctly. This will help reduce any premature wear on our master cylinders. Once you think that you have it completely installed correctly, do some tests. As you see here, we're making sure that the rod's going into the master as straight as possible. We have over 10 years of development in this thing, and I'm really liking the newest version right here. What it ends up doing is you'll see this extra tab right here on the top, and what that does is it's going to bolt directly up in through the cowl. Because this conversion's master cylinder sits underneath the dash, it consumes the same area as your driver vent tube and fresh air duct. The stuff has to be removed and cannot be reused. Now, you don't have to take the dash out for this conversion. However, it might make getting out the fresh air duct easier if you're trying to keep it in one piece. We have two reservoirs available with our kits. One fully billet aluminum. Look at that, it's rad with the billet stay. It changes it to AN fittings right down there at the bottom. It's pretty cool. And our other option is a plastic reservoir, which is a little more cost effective, but if you want the bling, boom, we got it. So since the cowl is off, this is exactly the perfect time to start drilling our hole for it. There isn't a hole here for this to bolt it onto. So what you'll do is you'll run your line through the firewall first. The line is pretty long. You want to find a spot to mount the reservoir somewhere where it's going to be out of the way of any interference of the shock tower bolts or the upper control arm bolts. You'll want to start a pilot and then drill through. You're going to be bolting it through the cowl, so that hole right there by my hand, you'll be able to get your socket and ratchet through. Now you want to keep the hose loose, whether you have the billet or the plastic style. What we're doing right here is making sure it's angled correctly before we go ahead and tighten everything, and then once we think we got the right spot, then you can go ahead and tighten it, whether it's has a hose clamp or this AN fitting you see here. This is also when you want to attach the hose directly to the master cylinder as we're putting the conversion up into the body. Our kit comes with the universal line kit. Will essentially work with any transmission. I have customers out there with the complete S2000 swap in their CRX using the conversion. That's pretty crazy, but it's decently length and it will work on both passenger and driver side, whether it's a K series, B series, H series, it doesn't really matter. Matter of fact, our conversions will work with anything with a slave cylinder, so it doesn't really matter what swap you have, assuming that the line will reach wherever you need it to go. This is what our line kit looks like. It's complete, it's comprehensive. It consists of two sections here. One's inside the car, one's outside the car, and then here's our bulkhead, and we do have some finishing washers that tighten up really nicely up onto the body. It's going to come with our banjo bolt here, and yes, that's right, we attach to the master cylinder using a banjo, and that means our masters are also banjo, which means this has 360 degree clocking. You're going to bolt that on to the master cylinder before you install it, and you're going to face it the direction that the line's going to come in. For the drilling, we're going to be using another outstanding tool from Milwaukee. This right here is a 90 degree angle. drill, and it's powered by M12. Usually, in some cases, you might not have all this open room here in the back like a K series. Maybe you have a B or a D series, and the intake manifold's right here, and get down in here could be difficult. What I'm going to do is drill right in the middle of this embossment. When drilling the hole from the firewall, you'll see that it's going to come through this sound deadening material here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a hole saw, a really nice hole into the material there so we can get our bulkhead fitting attached to it. Using the hole saw, it just makes it really clean. That's what it's going to look like with the hole saw. Came out really clean. Now it is tight up against that motor right there. But basically just squeeze it in there and it comes out really nice. We can now attach our clutch line to the bulkhead fitting. We can route it any direction we want within reason. It's about 36 inches long and can reach on both driver and passenger, whether it's a B series or a K series, and routed in any direction that you'd want given the length. Here's how we could attach to a K series, a slave cylinder. Depending on what slave cylinder you use, the line can attach from on top or on the side like I'm showing here, and you can route it along the frame rail if you want. Our conversion kit's available in a number of packages, and one of them would be excluding a line. Maybe you wanted to make a custom line, maybe you had a custom slave cylinder or throwout bearing. You can do that by not ordering a universal line kit from us. In this scenario, we decided that we were going to make a custom line. We're going to retain the OEM hard line on the K series transmission and then put a 90-degree fitting right there off of the bulkhead. Doing something like this does require special flaring because we're going to be adding a tube nut and sleeve to get this soft line attached to the hard. Now remember, this is going to be something custom. Not every one of you are going to be able to do this, but what I'm showing you is what you could do if you wanted to and you had the means. The line's out of the car now, and this is how it looks on top of the transmission. And it's got a 90-degree angle there that is not going to really work for our setup, so we're going to cut it off right here. But first, they have this plastic protective coating on it that we're going to skin back a little bit before we make our cut and flare. How many of you guys follow Boosted Boys? I went to go change my battery in my camera, and I walked over here and I noticed that they uploaded the CRX that they got Fong. Pretty cool. Now that the line is cut, we're going to be able to attach it to our hard line here using what's called a tube nut and sleeve. So we're going to have to make sure that you install the tube nut and then the sleeve before you make your flare, because then you're not going to be able to get this stuff on, man. I've made that mistake. I'm sure some of you else have done this. We are a Brake Quip dealer, and this is a device from Brake Quip. This is going to flare our line perfectly every single time. It locks it in place there, and if any one of you guys have done this by hand, you know how difficult it is. So I've already measured the line before we installed it in here, and what we want the line is to be flush with this, with the mount clamps here. We're going to spin this turret to the first operation. So there's multiple operations here that we could use. We're flaring 3/16 line, which is listed right here. We're going to go to operation 1. And then we'll flip it to operation 2. And that's done. There it is. Perfect flare every time. Now what the tube nut does, what the sleeve does, is it will butt up against that flare that we have there, and then our tube nut is what's going to keep it tight and secure against our fitting. I'm going to tighten the union fitting on now because we're right here and think it's going to get better torque out of the car than it will on, and it will help reduce bending this hard line all into weird shapes as we're trying to attach our clutch line to it. I think it came out pretty cool. I like the OEM look right here, and it goes over the transmission pretty cool. I'm sure some of you are going to like this too, but it would require you to cut and flare your own. This is something that we could possibly offer you. At least the soft line part, you would have to cut and flare your own hard line. If you have any other ideas about what kind of clutch line you want, just give us a call. We'd appreciate you calling and not commenting or messaging us. We're pretty busy, but we could take calls pretty much all of the time. Now that we're finished here, we can get back to the pedal assembly. Because of the cramped tight spaces inside underneath the dash, I'm not going to record underneath there, but I'm going to take some pictures that I'll screenshot here in this video, and then we'll get back to it once it's bolted in. It's easier to work in here if you remove the driver's seat there, giving plenty of space. Our conversion is going to require you to drill through the cowl, put the pedal assembly in, then you're going to make some marks with a Sharpie, then you're going to take the pedal assembly back out, and then you're going to drill out for some bolts that we're going to provide to you. Then put the pedal assembly back in, and then bolt it in. With the conversion set in there, you'll just want to grab this 2 studs that are on the firewall. You got one over here, and there's one up in the corner there. Just keep them loose. We also have a bolt that we're going to attach up here. Just keep them loose so that the foot can move up and down as needed so that we can get our bolt through. So we're going to send you some hardware there. It's so difficult to get a camera in here, and right now you can already see that the drill holes are misaligned. So by keeping it loose, it'll help us drop the bolts in from the outside of the car down, and then we'll add the nuts here. So you'll probably need some help here if you decided that this method is going to work for you. I think what we'll end up doing, what you could end up doing though, is also installing some riv nuts in there. You saw me use a magnet to kind of drop it down in there, and because the foot and everything's loose, it was able to just drop right through, and it dropped right onto the foot. We are definitely coming to a close. One last thing that we're going to do before we button the pedal assembly all the way up. If you didn't realize, the pedal assembly is held on also by the studs of the brake booster. Well, this customer didn't like the way that this brake booster looked, and so we're actually going to be deleting that. Brake booster deletes are a subject of controversy. For those that are unfamiliar, I'll link a great article by Outbound Motorsports in the description below that explains it more in detail. In this video, we're just going to go over how to install ours. Our booster's already loosened from the firewall, but before we even try to remove this, we're going to be focusing on the master cylinder. Look at it, side by side. We're going to be going from this to something like this. We're going to be saving a ton of room, and for the most part, in Hondas, this is exactly why they're deleting the boosters. Now, our master cylinder is going to bolt directly to this plate, and this part is going to bolt directly to the firewall. Our kit's going to come with all the hardware that you're going to need, including a new push rod. Yes, that's right. As you can see here, the push rod and clevis are attached to the booster, so if you remove this, how are you going to get it to attach to the pedal? Well, this is exactly how. Our new kit's going to come with the rod that you're going to need. We're going to be using this clevis off of their booster. All right, those two studs are pretty much the only prep work you're gonna need. These bolts right here are gonna act as these studs back here, but it's also gonna hold the master. Look at that, it is literally that easy. Done. Now all we have to do is tighten it on, and we'd have to do that anyways when we're going to go back inside and tighten the pedal assembly to the firewall, and we're done. Look how clean that makes the install look. We end up putting one of these on Kyle's from the Boosted Boys last year. Maybe we can link his so you can see all the room he has for his big O turbo that sits right here in his EF wagon. Really the only thing we have left is then bolt it to the body, which we have to do anyways for the pedal assembly, and then attach our push rod. It is fairly difficult to get in there and hold the camera at the same time, but you can see right there where the master is coming through. We'll try to squeeze this in there. Let's see if we can get a shot of that for you guys. See if we can light it and get a shot for you guys. There you go. Okay. If you guys saw that, it was literally that easy. Now you just install your clevis pin and tighten everything up. Now there will be some tuning with the push rod as far as how the clutch or how the clevis is tightened onto the pedal. You're going to tighten that just like you would a replacement booster or a replacement clutch. I would just have you reference your favorite service manual. We are ready to bleed. We're going to be using traditional brake fluid, DOT. Use the brake fluid of your choice. Those lines, they can use up to .4, so that's something to keep in mind if you want to use a heavier duty fluid there. I don't think I've ever seen it pull that fast before. That's awesome. Hey guys, that concludes today's video. We went over the Hasport CMA, we went over the Hush Performance cable to hydro conversion, and of course the Hush Performance brake booster delete. Remember, anything that you see in these videos, you'll see down in the description below. Also in the description, you're gonna be looking for a very special discount code, which means anything that you've seen in this entire series, you can save on. Just look for the code. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to check out our sister channel at Vtec Academy. Make sure to check out our website at hushperformance.com. And like always, happy tuning.